Immediately Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side while he dismissed the crowd. After he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night, he was there alone, and the boat was already a considerable distance from land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid." "Lord, if it's you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," he said. Then Peter got out of the boat, walked on the water, and came towards Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You of little faith," he said, "why do you doubt?" And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. Then those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." This happens just after Jesus feeds 5,000 people with the food brought by one boy. And two of the most well-known miracles in the Bible happen on the same day. Can you imagine being the disciples and seeing Jesus feeding 5,000 people using food that was way too little to feed all these people, but he did it anyway, and then going from that high of everything that happened, getting in this boat, and then while you're fighting this strong wind, being buffeted by the waves, suddenly he just comes walking at you on the water. Can you imagine just seeing that, just bearing witness to that? What must have been going on? And Peter at that moment does this thing that everyone remembers Peter for. You know, he got out and he started walking on the water as well, going towards Jesus, and he's physically walking on the water. But then he looks around and he sees the wind and he starts doubting and he starts sinking. Because it was only because he believed that he could walk on the water, that Jesus would allow him to walk on the water, that he was walking on the water. It was only his faith that was allowing this, and the moment that faith faltered, he started sinking. But how similar is what Peter's doing to what we do every day? I mean, he's sitting in the boat, he's looking at Jesus. Jesus is already walking on the water, coming towards him in the storm, and he gets out and he starts walking on the water. He's doing it already. He's standing on water. He's walking amongst the waves towards Jesus. And then he gets distracted. I mean, how? How does he forget in that instant, because of the wind and everything, that he is already doing what he then starts doubting he can do? But how much do we do that as well? How often do we get distracted? I mean, especially these days, we have all of these distractions. We have phones and tablets, we have the internet, we have YouTube, social media, we have our friends distracting us, we have family events, busy life, schedules, school, studies, work. We have all of these things keeping us busy. And we get so distracted that oftentimes we forget. And I mean, Peter forgot what he was doing 2 seconds ago, and he started doubting in something that he was already doing. He was confronted by Jesus standing on the water in front of him, with him standing on the water himself, and he still doubted that he could do it, and he started sinking. So how often don't we get distracted? Don't we start looking at the things around us and forgetting what happened last week, last Sunday, yesterday, this morning, just now? How often do we just forget? I mean, we hear God, we encounter God, we feel God, we worship and we feel His presence, or we see miracles happening in our daily lives, we encounter His presence in our world, and then we forget because we get distracted. And in our distractions, we start faltering, we start wondering, we start doubting, we start forgetting. You get these people, and I've been there as well, where you just feel, I haven't heard God, I haven't felt God, I haven't encountered God in such a long time. I'm beginning to wonder if it wasn't all in my mind. But the thing is, you had encountered Him. You had been there. You had felt that. You had believed. But you forget because you become distracted. We allow the noise in our lives to distract us from God standing right there in front of us. Just as Peter got distracted by the wind, even though Jesus was standing right there, looking at him, calling to him, he still forgot. And we forget as well. But if only Peter didn't get distracted, if only he just realized what he was doing and allowed that to strengthen his faith, imagine what he would have gone on to do then. God is there calling to us. He's standing in front of us. Imagine if we don't get distracted, if we don't forget, how different our lives will be. So let's try not to be distracted. Let's try not to forget. Let's try to walk on the water with him. Because through faith, we're allowed all of these things. And through faith, God can work miracles in our lives. If only we don't forget.